Hey everyone, today I'm going to go over how to identify original factory paint on a second generation Viper. Some of this information will apply to the other generations, but for the most part this is mainly second gen information. Vipers are notoriously difficult for identifying factory paint, but there are some tips I'll go over in this video of how things you can look at and identify to sort of help put together the total picture to see if the car is original or not. There are several issues that make it hard to identify original paint on these cars. The biggest one is they have fiberglass bodies. The majority of cars are made with either steel or aluminum, so you can check them with a traditional paint depth gauge. However, on this car, the body being fiberglass, you cannot. There are paint depth gauges available for cars that have that will do all materials for cars with fiberglass bodies or other materials. However, they are very, very expensive. A all materials paint depth gauge that will encompass fiberglass is probably in the $2,000 range. So they are pretty expensive, and most people will not spend that kind of money for something you're really only going to use very sparingly for the most part. What also makes these cars difficult is they were hand painted and the tape lines were done by hand. So unlike cars that are built in a factory with machines where the machine does the exact same procedure perfectly identically every time, there are a lot of inconsistencies car to car since they are done by a human, and they're a lot less precise. Why do you want to look at this information? Why do you want to know this information? Number one, the value. Original paint cars are always worth more than cars that have been repainted. And the question is, if it's been repainted, why? Was it in an accident? Was there an issue with the paint? And you want to make sure that the person who is selling the car is representing the car appropriately. If they're saying the car has original paint, but these signs point to it not having original paint, are they either misinformed on the car or are they trying to mislead you? So that's the main reasons that you really want to know if the car does or does not have original paint. First and foremost, check the Viper registry under the build subsection. In there it will say what Vipers were available with what color, which years. They usually only made 2-3 colors available for each year of production, so that makes it a little bit easier to spot original paint, because say you are looking at say you decide I want a black GTS second generation. You go in there and look at the production numbers, you'll find black was only available in 99 and 2000. So if you come across, say, a black 97 GTS, right off the bat, you know the car's not original because that color wasn't available that year. And most of the colors were only available for a couple of years. So that's usually a good way to sort of spot if the car has original paint on it or not. Also, look around the entire car. Look over the car. The shading of the paint should be perfectly symmetrical and identical all around. Even though the cars were painted when they were apart, unlike most factory cars that are painted in one piece, all the body panels should match. There shouldn't be any fading differences between any of the body panels, so it should be pretty much perfect all the way around, unless the car was stored in some weird condition where one part of it was exposed to, say, more sunlight than another. But other than that, it should be perfectly evenly shaded. Getting into some specific Viper stuff that you can look at. One really good telltale sign for checking the side and the front of the cars are these stickers here. If you can look very closely, you can see there is a C-shaped sticker here. It's clear. It was made by 3M and it was put on from the factory. You have the sticker here on the front of the rocker. You also have a sticker on the front fascia on the bottom of the bumper right here. You can see the line in the light. This goes just to the very end here. You also have one of each on the other side. You have the sticker on the nose on this side on the bottom of the front fascia, and you also on the other side have your C-shaped sticker that was clear. Again, it was made by 3M. These were put on from the factory. These are a pretty good telltale sign if the car has original paint. Most body shops, if they have to repaint Vipers, are not going to go out of their way to put those stickers on. I don't know if they're even still available, but I've seen several Vipers and that I've evaluated, and I've seen some of them that don't have those stickers on, and that's usually a telltale sign that they've been repainted. So since most body shops won't go out of their way, that's usually a pretty good way to tell if the car's got original paint on the side and the front. Also, look underneath the car. Like I said before, these cars were painted apart, unlike most cars, so there should be no overspray whatsoever anywhere on the car. If you look under a car that's built in a factory as one piece, you'll get a little bit of overspray on the underside of the car. This thing, absolutely not. There should be no underspray whatsoever around and underneath this car that is the body color, period. Also, another good telltale sign for this car is the waviness of the paint. On most cars, waviness is an issue in paint. On this car, it's really not. With this having the fiberglass bodies, there is some waviness. The doors are the most pronounced. So if you look in the sunlight, you'll see against the white backdrop, you could see some fading. I'm sorry, not fading. Some waviness in the paint. Also, the doors, like I said, since they're the most pronounced, you can usually tell. If you look very closely, you might be able to see some of the waviness. Now, how that helps you is the car is wavy all around, especially the doors. Now, that waviness should be symmetrical side to side. So if you are looking at, say, the left side of the car, and, it has the noticeable waviness, as they should, and then you go look at the other side of the car, and the other side's a lot smoother and looks much smoother and more like glass, then the car's probably been repainted, and they did a better job on the other side when it was repainted of smoothing it out. So the waviness should be symmetrical side to side. Hopefully you can see this, and if you're able to ever look at a Viper in person, definitely check it out if you don't own one. The waviness is pretty much all over the car, but especially on the doors, so that gives you a pretty good idea if the car's been repainted, if the waviness is not really equal around the car. The waviness level can be different car to car, but they're all gonna have it one way or another. Also, again, with the edges of the tape lines, if you see here, you can see that the edges aren't really perfect. They're not really symmetrical. The lines aren't perfectly straight, so don't be put off if they're not perfect, the tape edges, but just know that they're not going to be perfectly straight really on any car, and they may be different side to side. So that's one thing that's very common on these cars, since the lines were done by hand. Also on the back bumper, back's a little bit harder to tell. The tape they did on the paint job they did on here with the tape edges, the lines are usually straight, but the edges can be a little off, since when they rounded them off, they weren't necessarily perfect. This is pretty common, so unfortunately that's just kind of the way how Vipers are. And then one trick you can also use, this applies to pretty much every car, checking the edge lines. And what that means is, if a car is repainted, most body shops will not go out of their way to sand all the way around the edge. From a factory setting, the paint is smooth all the way around. So, like I said, any car, and especially on these cars, run your finger around any edge that you have, along the edges of the hood. It should be smooth the entire way around. Open the door and do the same thing. Run your finger along the top and all the way around to the back. The painted parts of the car should be smooth all the way around, period. There should be absolutely no roughness when you get around the edge. If the front or the top of it is smooth, and as you get around the edge it gets rough, that's probably a repaint, and the body shops they're not going to go and sand the edges that you don't see or normally don't feel. So that's usually another good telltale sign. So I hope this video was very informative to help better spot original paint on Vipers, since they are notoriously difficult. Thanks for watching.